evening and welcome to the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. Has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Will you please call the roll?
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
Carlin.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Carnes.
Here.
Szilagyi.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, it's my pleasure to invite two students from Emmeline Cook Elementary School who have come out on this rainy night to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Dean Thomas and Graham Herzenka.
Hi.
Whenever you're ready, gentlemen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We really appreciate your coming. You and the other 9,000 plus students in the school district as to why we're here. So we really appreciate you taking time out, your parents bringing you tonight. You're welcome to stay till the end of the meeting, but if you have other important things to do, we certainly understand you need to leave early. So Dean,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. Graham, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, have a nice night.
Thanks, you too.
And a good end to the school year, too. Our next agenda item is to approve tonight's agenda. Is there any board member who wishes to make any adjustments in the agenda, to move anything around? We can't add anything because of the open meeting law, but if we want to change the order of anything or pull a item to be considered individually, this would be the time to do that.
Chris?
Yeah, I'd like to pull number 12.
Okay. And for those people listening, that's the East Hall Park lease with UW Oshkosh. Are there any other suggestions for the agenda?
And just for clarity, that's moving that to the individually considered
Yes.
resolutions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
All right.
Since I wanted to ask, since we have so many people here for the forum, would anyone entertain an idea of moving the forum up so we can hear what people have to say here tonight, or? I guess our reports aren't that long, but I'm not hearing any energy around that, so I'll continue, Dr. Herzog.
All right. Thank you. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, please call the roll.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to board and administrative reports, starting with the board president's report. Mr. Peschel was not able to be here tonight, which is why I'm sitting in here. The one thing that he wanted to address were the retirement recognition list. We have 3 individuals who are choosing to go on to another age and stage of life. Sheila Alvarez has been a supervisory teacher assistant at Oshkosh North High School and has worked for the district for 33 years. So we want to thank her for her dedication to the students and staff of the Oshkosh North community. If you come in off I think that's the west parking lot, she's that friendly face who greets all the students, seems to know everyone by name, and greets staff and visitors as well. Lisa Duff is currently a school counselor at Perry Tipler Middle School, and she's seeking to retire after 27 years of service to the students of this district, and we thank her for her dedication. And finally, Stephen Freeman is an assistant custodian fireperson 1 who is currently at Emmeline Cook and Oak Lawn Elementary School and is seeking to retire after 8 years. So we want to definitely wish these 3 all the best as they proceed into the next age and stage of life. So with that, our next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Davis.
Great, thank you. And before we get into our superintendent's report tonight, which is a celebration of the good things that are going on, I also want to recognize just the kind of the cloud, I think, that really hangs over our entire country right now. And just ask if everybody could just join me in a moment of silence to remember the students, 19 fourth graders, 9 and 10-year-olds, along with the 2 teachers that were murdered in their own classroom yesterday at Robb Elementary in Texas. So if you could just join me for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We certainly have their school community and all of their families in our thoughts. Also wanted to just provide some perspective and some narrative just before we begin tonight, just from a historical context. Part of what's been interesting for me as I've come back to Oshkosh after 20 years is to be able to have a lot of acquaintances and things that have kind of come back full circle for me, a lot of students that I've now reconnected as adults. One of the things that I was hoping not to revisit in my time here actually happened today. Back over 20 years ago when I was teaching at Oshkosh West on April 20th, 1999, I was teaching at Oshkosh West High School when the news of Columbine High School and the murders that happened in school came across the news channels, killing 13 people in their own school setting, which at that time was pretty unfathomable that would happen. Since that time, we've had, as we know, significant increase in murders that have happened inside of our school buildings. So when the news came across yesterday afternoon in reflections today that we had 21 people, again 19 fourth graders, 9 and 10-year-olds, and 2 teachers killed in their own classroom, it really flashed me back to 1999. So I just want to make sure that, again, the Oshkosh community understands that our security and safety is our number 1 priority. These things certainly can happen in Oshkosh, and we need to make sure that we stay diligent in protecting our staff and students, within our schools. All of our schools have comprehensive emergency response plans in place to navigate through our safety situations. As always, we ask if you see or hear something of concern related to school safety, contacting the school office, a trusted adult, or local authorities immediately are one of our best ways to stay ahead of those things as they would happen. So we have those in place for our schools. Beyond that, I would offer some conversations that I think we should have as a community, which I think is a 3-pronged approach. And one of my frustrations now is that there seems to be somewhat of a narrowing of solutions, and I think really taking a multi-pronged approach is really important as we're moving forward. So as part of my reflections and through reading a lot over the last 24 hours and experiencing schools in our context since 1999, I think there's 3 things that we really need to engage with. And this is not a school system engagement. This is something that we need to do with our local law enforcement, that we need to do with our local representatives and as an entire community. So number 1, and this is for all of us, I think embracing the uniqueness of those around us as a chance to learn and grow. It's really to be able to just care for each other. One of the great things that I experienced today that probably got me through the day was going to Care Days over at Oshkosh West, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but it was really an opportunity for our adaptive PE students to be able to have an opportunity to match up with some of their peers and do some physical activities, but it was a wonderful chance of empathy and an understanding of that our differences are really what make us stronger. They get us through our blind spots and be able to make us to be a stronger community. So we can all do that on a daily basis, and I would encourage that as part of one of our prongs as we move forward to making sure that our schools are safe and healthy for all of our students and staff. Number two, I think it's going to be important for us to, and we do some of this, but I think specifically collaborating with our elected officials, Oshkosh Police Department, Winnebago County Sheriff's Department, in developing gun reform legislation, both at a federal, state, and local level, that can assist in protecting our kids, our teachers, and our law enforcement officers that are in our schools every day. I think we can come up with solutions that can get passed, and I think that's an important piece as we're moving forward. Whatever side of the aisle that you're on, I don't care. Like when I think about 9 and 10-year-olds barricaded in a classroom is unacceptable, and it can happen in Oshkosh as much as it could happen in Texas. So we have to make sure that we're being proactive around that. And again, gun reform isn't the only solution to this. It's not a silver bullet, but I think it is part of the multi-pronged approach, and I think we can develop that solution collectively together. And then I think finally, continuing to provide support for community and mental health services. That's something I know that our district has been working on, but we know that there's a lack of mental health resources both at a school level and within our community, and we know that is a critical aspect for many of these situations that are coming up. So I would challenge us as a system and as a community to be able to take that multi-pronged approach as an opportunity for us to make sure that the next 20 years don't look like the last 20 years. Because if we stay stuck in paralysis like we have since 1999, we can almost expect this to continue. And whether it's in Texas or Florida or California or in Wisconsin, it will continue to happen unless we make some actionable changes. So I would just approach this again as a multi-pronged approach. Not one of these things is going to solve it, and all three of these together will probably make some improvements and not be a full solution, but we have to continue to work together as we're moving forward. So I just wanted to be able to offer that tonight prior to my superintendent's good news report as just a reality check, I think, on where we are, and challenge, and just an offer and an opportunity for us to be in collaboration with many of our agencies as we're moving forward. So with that, I'll go into our good news report for tonight. So to start with, the Perry Tippler and Alps school community recently celebrated their positive behavior with dilly bars, which are always a great treat at this time of year. We certainly appreciate the efforts of our students and staff in making sure our schools are places where all of our students can succeed and feel welcome. So great work to everybody involved in that. Oshkosh North, newcomer students in the English Speakers of Other Languages program recently learned about college life. They met with a group of international students from Fox Valley Technical College to talk about college and their own cultural experiences. So it's a great collaboration, so thank you for everybody involved in that. The Communities Program at Oshkosh North, in collaboration with Mid-Morning Kiwanis, recently had a successful spaghetti dinner. The event raises money for children in conflicted areas. Over 350 people attended, which was a great event. I personally attended. The spaghetti was fantastic, and then I got to see the play right after that, so it was a really nice combination. So thanks again to the Communities Program for keeping up the great work there. Relationships matter, and it's amazing to see our staff in action. So this is another good example of the Washington Elementary School community recently came together for their annual fifth graders versus staff kickball game. So while the staff walked away with a very close 16-13 win, the smiles all around were proof that it was all about the memories and not the score made. Unless you ask staff, and then they'll probably remind you what the score was. No, I'm just kidding. So a little competitive. It was a great day. The Student Council at Roosevelt Elementary recently organized a penny award to benefit the Oshkosh Humane Society. Thanks to the generosity of these elementary students, a total of nearly $1,000 will be donated to a local nonprofit organization. So way to go, Roosevelt. The Carl Traeger Elementary School community recently came together to learn about Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. The students heard from a current Oshkosh West High School junior and former Carl Traeger student about the history and contribution Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have made to the United States. The school community was so grateful for this learning experience. We recently celebrated two of our outstanding pupil services staff team members. Nicole Beckman and Cindy Sanders received the 2022 Making a Difference Award from the Wisconsin Council of Administrators of Special Services. Nicole Beckman is currently a school psychologist for the Early Learning Program and Perry Tipler Middle School, while Cindy Sanders is an administrative assistant for the district's Pupil Services Department. Both Nicole and Cindy were nominated for this award because they consistently go above and beyond within their roles to support students with special needs in our district. So congratulations to them. Last week also kicked off our graduation season for us as we celebrated 61 graduates of the 2022 Riverside Alternative Program Education Program. Attendees were able to hear from class speakers and program leaders, as well as experience an inspiring address from one of the class's favorite guest speakers. Riverside is an alternative education program that provides students with opportunities to work individually towards completing their high school graduation requirements, take Fox Valley Technical College courses, and participate in volunteer-based learning experiences and engage in career exploration opportunities. We are excited to see what lies ahead for these determined young adults, so congratulations to all of those graduates. As previously announced, the Oshkosh Area School District will honor the class of 2022 during in-person graduation ceremonies at the Oshkosh Arena. The entire Oshkosh community is invited and encouraged to experience the graduation ceremonies virtually and join together to celebrate our class of 2022. The link to view these live streams will be available on our district's webpage. And finally, just the list of busy schedule that we have for May over the last couple weeks as we prep for graduation and our end of the year visits. And that concludes the superintendent's report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Moving on then, we have the board listening session report from May 11th, 2022 with Dr. Gundlach.
Good evening, everybody. We had a few folks at the listening session of May 11th. The first group represented Oshkosh parents of black and brown students. Some of the concerns that they had expressed were around the disproportionate suspension rates and a request that be disaggregated by school versus by district. Some folks in the room were members of the equity committee, and they would like increased clarity in terms of what the charge of that group is, and more information on ICS, what the schedule is, what the outcomes will be, what the training schedule is, et cetera. So just a request in general for some more information. And then as far as accountability on progress and what the metrics would be for that progress. So that was the overall discussion that we had. There was another individual who addressed the group who was concerned about a cancellation fee for a trip to Japan. The cancellation fee they felt was inappropriately high, and they expressed concerns over contacting the company on getting the resolution. The suggestion was that we work with vendors to get them to decrease the cancellation fee before allowing them to actually have access to offer the program to our students. So those were the two various groups that spoke at listening session.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Gundlach.
You're welcome.
Next, we move on to District Administrator Supplemental Reports. Ms. Piron and Ms. Skifstead are here to talk about Social Emotional Learning ES3 Grant Report.
Good evening. Kelly and I were blessed to embark upon this journey with grant funds that had us delve into Elena Aguilar's Coaching for Equity, and really using that knowledge to coach and help and enhance social emotional learning for students who have IEPs. I don't know what you want to add, Kelly.
So part of the grant was to figure out what our staff need so that we can meet the needs of our students and then make it sustainable. It's a 3-year grant, as the report says, and our goal is to move to a sustainable system once the grant is over as well.
Very good. Any questions or comments for these two presenters?
I'm
Right.
just
I'm
thank
sorry.
you for doing that, that great work. So it's appreciated.
Kelly is, she has been just really a blessing to the department. I just want to acknowledge her work and her passion for equity work and really moving students along in their social emotional learning, especially students with IEPs. So having her at the helm has just been really nice for us.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on then, our next agenda item is other reports. These would be from committee chairs who chair one of the various standing committees of the school board. The first is the Administrative Compensation Committee.
We met on Monday, May 16th, and our first agenda item was that we are trying to stay competitive with neighboring districts of similar sizes when we're dealing with administrators and executive staff. And we're going to be looking ahead for the next 10 years of salaries and positions. We're using Baird as a resource who does a lot of the comparisons, the comparables for getting the salaries closer to being competitive. We especially want to move on this because we want to retain those staff that we believe have made the district better and continue to do so. And this will be something that will be reviewed biannually. Another part of this is principal positions, and we want to be sure that we are engaged and that we are offering competitive principal salaries. We all know if a principal leaves the district, the startup time to get a new principal acclimated into a classroom can take a number of years. We also feel it's very important to grow our own, and especially as we move into the future, we have a lot of students, current students, that are interested in teaching, and how we recruit them back from UWO or the other places that they may go is very, very important. And the other thing we're looking at is not only salary, but benefits and vacation time. We have two principals that are going through transitions right now. One is Christy Levy, who is going through the Merrill transition. And we have Beth Galeazzi, who will be going through the Webster transition. And we're recommending that we give them each $10,000 a year stipend, because not only are they managing two schools, they're also opening a new school. This will go back down. This take place for 2 years, and at the end of that time, it will go back down to their regular salary. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Wyman. Next, we have the Education Committee.
Yes, we met on Thursday, May 12th, and went through an update on alternative programming. I'm not going to go through all of the different options, but we discussed the Riverside program, New Start, Crossroads, and Second Chance. I think the biggest takeaway for me was the traditional school model is not a fit for everyone, and these are other options that are our way of preparing our students to still, get the degree, to get their high school diploma, to be able to be a community member, be prepared. And one of the programs, I think, was Riverside, that a lot of these students would have been ones that we may have lost. And throughout the program, 70% of them that started were able to finish the program. And so I think that's just the power of the different options that we have at our disposal. And Julie Conrad made a statement at the end, which was memorable to me, in that all these different programs that we have, it's not about creating more and finding different options as much as it is about bringing those programs into our current model within our current schools, so that we're not separating students away from each other, but we're keeping them in the school building around their peers as we go. And that's also part of the equity journey as we go. So it was a very educational meeting for an education committee, but learned a lot about the different options that we have and as we go forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Carnes.
Carnes, I'm sorry. Christopher and Christopher, I get mixed up sometimes, sorry about that. Next is the Facilities and Finance Committee. That met on Thursday, May 19th. We addressed several agenda items. One was a petition to honor Nancy Dolish from South Park Middle School. She was the music band director there for many years. She had a profound effect on a lot of students, increased participation in the band to a significant level. And so we discussed several options, including reaching out to the South Park Middle School, since it's their building, for them to have input. And our goal is to come to a decision this fall and have that decision go into effect this coming December or January, in terms of recognizing and honoring Mrs. Dolish. We also discussed therapy dogs. Drew Nehans had reported that he and Matt Kemmer had recently begun the process of adding a therapy dog to one of our schools. The dog was purchased by the district and is currently going through an extensive 6-month training program. The dog would have 2 handlers on staff who would be responsible for it and required to attend training with the dog on an annual basis. Students and staff would also be required to follow specific protocols when with the dog. The dog is expected to pass training requirements and to be ready at Carl Traeger Elementary School this coming fall. Some of you may remember that Kaylee Heidman, the school counselor at Carl Traeger Elementary School, was named one of the 5 Wisconsin Teachers of the Year. She received a grant from the Cole Foundation, and that's where she spent her money to buy this dog to benefit students in Carl Traeger and throughout the district. If things go as well as we expect them to, the district is also interested in looking into an additional therapy dog or dogs as a great way to connect with students, to calm them down, and add to school pride and identity. We discussed potential use of Fund 46. This is a capital improvement fund. The advantage of this fund is that the DPI views transfers into the fund as an expense, so the district actually ends up receiving aid on that money. Currently, the district has a good fund balance and doesn't need to work on building it up. So transferring funds from Fund 10, which is the general fund, to Fund 46, the capital improvement fund, would allow the district to capture some additional state aid. Let's see. The audit and closing of the books for this fiscal year will show how much money would need to be transferred, and Drew Nehans is recommending that any surplus funds that are being anticipated by the end of July 30th of this year would get transferred to aid in funding future projects. We also discussed the budget variance report. Mr. Nehans reported that the rec department is showing a small surplus. Due to the summer program registration fees, some of the surplus would be put toward updating some larger equipment and upgrades that had been neglected over the years. Food service is also currently showing a surplus. The self-funded medical coverage that we began in January of this year is currently running a $5 million surplus, and there have been no major changes to the dental coverage over the last few months. The next meeting will be June 16th, 2022. We will receive an update on summer projects, talk about planters in front of our buildings, the electrical boxes in front of the Emmeline Cook Elementary School, and an update on the recreation department happenings. The next committee report is legislative.
Thank you, Dr. Herzog.
You're welcome.
Legislative Committee met on Thursday, May 12th. The first thing we talked about was ESSER funds and how we are using that funding responsibly. The district has been very careful not to spend the ESSER funds in a way that once they're gone, there is a fiscal cliff. However, in 2023-2025 biennium budget, we will need a definite need for per pupil increase to be at least 2 times as much to make up the difference for the past 2 years, whereas there was not a per pupil increase. So the committee talked about how we need to start engaging with our legislators and tell our story of why we need a per pupil increase. I don't know why I can't say that tonight. So we talked about possibly going to Kiwanis clubs and telling our story in a way that people can understand that these ESSER funds that we got they're not for ongoing expenses. They're one and done, and we are being very responsible with how we're using that money. We also talked about the voucher program on the taxpayers and how we want to put something in the tax bill that documents how much money is going to vouchers. This was, Mr. Nehans developed this, but in the end, this is what we talked about for most of the meeting. And we decided that this visual is probably not what we're looking for. We want something that shows our $4 million loss and what it means to the district. And we also want to communicate what we're losing with the voucher program. So we're going to go back to work on that, but I think this was a good start in moving us closer to our goal of getting it on the taxpayer bill. We also had our legislative representatives for committee meetings. Dr. Herzog is going to be meeting with Senator Fayan. Liz Szilagyi is going to be meeting with Representative Hintz, and I am going to be meeting with Michael Schra. our next meeting is on June 10th. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carlin. The next committee is the Policy and Governance Committee.
Thank you, Dr. Herzog. We haven't met yet. We're meeting tomorrow, so we'll have a report for you the next go-around.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next agenda item would be non-agenda related public forum. I believe we have some people who have signed up this evening, so while Dr. Davis is retrieving that sign-up list, I'll just read our expectations for those when addressing the board. First of all, we ask that you clearly state your name and full address and the topic you wish to discuss. If you are acting as a spokesperson for a particular group of individuals, please indicate the group you represent. Second, please state clearly and concisely the matters of concern. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. And lastly, please remember that the use of specific names of district personnel by titles or identifiable descriptions may lead to legal liability. In such cases, please pursue the district's complaint process by contacting the superintendent's office at 424-0160 so that your complaint can be directed to the appropriate administrator. With that, we have 2 people who have signed up. We will start with Mrs. Erdman, or Dr. Erdman, since she signed up first.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Jean Erdman. I live at 415 South Meadow Street, also known as around the corner from here. Easy commute. I'm here to talk about the outside of the school building and green space, specifically Val Phillips. I believe that the district is firmly committed to doing the best for all children and making sure that when we have Val Phillips, and my kids went to school here, I went to school here, so that we have really truly made things better for the children. I consider green space to be sort of sacred. I grew up near downtown, and I could go over to the Y, to their little pocket park, and I could go down to Dale School to play. And that really was a big deal because that's about as far as I was allowed to go. I was a girl in the 50s. I'm really concerned about green space with Val Phillips because I looked on a map of city parks, and you've got Menominee Park, and then you have a tiny park called on Bent Avenue that's just really a pocket park with like one swing set, something like that. And then you got North, which doesn't have playground equipment, and then you got to go over the river. And kids who go to playgrounds typically are not allowed to walk over the bridge by themselves. So we really have kind of a dearth of green space in that area for children. And I wouldn't want, just because Merrill Elementary isn't going to be there, there's not an elementary school there, I want playground equipment for that neighborhood. I also want basketball hoops so that the teens can go over there and play without getting in trouble. I would like more coordination between the city, the county, and the school district, but I know that's hard. But my understanding is they're now doing a splash park, and one is going to be on the 2 of them, and one is going to be on the other side of 41, and one is going to be on, I don't know the name of it, but when you go over the bridge past Fratello's onto Oshkosh Avenue, there's a park there. That's where the other one is going to be, and I really would have liked to have seen that in an area that's more barren in terms of park space. So any proposals, if there are any, and I kind of heard there was, which kind of got me to come here. If there's any proposals to minimize the park space and sell off land that was Merrill's for other uses, I would encourage you not to do that. I do not think that's a just, fair thing to do to the neighborhood. I think middle schools should have playground equipment. I live around the corner from Tipler, and I frequently take my granddaughters. They don't only want to go to Franklin to play because Tipler has different equipment. They want to go there too. And every time I go to Tipler to play with these little kids, there's other parents playing there, or families or adults playing there with small children. Oakwood has lots of, we're a school district, not a district of schools. Oakwood has lots of green space. Traeger has lots of green space.
If you could wind up in about 15 seconds, please.
South Park, etc. So don't do anything to limit green space. And please, as you decide your various details, put playground equipment wherever you can. It will be used. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome, Dr. Erdman.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have Matt Took. Please state your name and address.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Matthew Took. I'm at 1679 Thornton Drive. Just a message to the class of 2022. There was a banquet at a great banquet hall, and there was a Shakespearean actor and a Catholic priest, and both took turns reciting the 23rd Psalm. And the actor went first, and he began in this deeply booming, resounding voice. And when he had finished, the crowd clapped and they cheered and they stood. But then the Catholic priest came up, and in a deeply meditative and reflective voice he began. And he said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside restful waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll not be afraid, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they protect me and comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Now, when he had wrapped up, something amazing happened. Nobody clapped, nobody spoke, nobody stood. And as the crowd was trying to figure out what the difference was, they knew that the actor knew the words, but the priest, he knew the shepherd. And that's the message that I have for the students, is to get to know Jesus Christ and who he is. And you will live a life uncommon, and that he has all the answers to the problems that you face. And that you only find your identity in him as a child created in the image and likeness of God. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Took.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 5 individuals who have signed up to speak on agenda-related topics. The first person to sign up was Dr. Erdman.
I'm going to pass.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then our next name is Deb Martin. We'd invite you to come up and state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Deb Martin. I live at 164 Wildwood Drive in Oshkosh. And I wanted to speak about the East Hall field. I've been a member of the League of Women Voters for a few years, and I know a study was made a while ago about parks and green space. So a little bit about what Dr. Ehrman mentioned earlier, green space. And I also know I'm on the City Parks Department Advisory Board, and I've seen the maps of where the parks are currently in our city. My concern is if the school leases it, that it be a building put there, and instead maybe the potential should be that a park should be there for the whole community, for the children in that area. So I just urge you to consider finding out from the community especially the people that live in that area, what they might see as the best use of it. I'm not to say that the school doesn't need buildings in different places or uses in other ways, but maybe that isn't the location. It just allow for a little bit time for the community to give some input. And I do appreciate all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lori Palmieri.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you, first of all, for your service on the school board. Really appreciate that, and I am here in my capacity this evening as a resident of the Middle Village neighborhood and also a resident of the Central City.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you please state your
Sorry,
address as well?
212 West Parkway Avenue.
Thank you.
It's different being on this side of things. In any event, I emailed all of you. I think you probably got a few emails, and I'm hoping for some clarification. But for tonight, basically, I'm asking that you, it appears that you've already pulled item number 12 on the East Hall item, the 50-year lease. And the reasons that I'm asking for this relate to a long history. It goes back pre-2010 in how our neighborhood association was formed over the lack of green space. And it was right around that time Lincoln School got closed. That space went away. Not that it was a lot of green space, you know, for neighbors to use in the first place, but and with the consolidation, it was, you know, kind of a big lump to swallow, and other schools shutting down as well. In any event, back to the lease. Basically, my question is, you know, what is the rush here for approving a 50-year lease? That's like 2.5 generations of time that would commit that land and tie it up for apparently some kind of construction of facilities for co-curricular activities. Not sure what that means. Only got a little bit of your last meeting. And, you know, the other thing I want to say is that in 2019, I was working with some neighbors, and we were talking about the needs. There was two young children less than half a block from that space playing in the dirt, digging in the dirt in the terrace. That's all they had to work with, this worn little patch of dirt less than half a block.
Could you wind this up, please, in about
I
15
will.
seconds or so?
Given the lack of park space in the central city and these 8 acres, I just ask that you pull this from the agenda and put a motion to lay this over until there can be more public input, and to please work with city planning and the city on potential uses for that space. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
Yes, thank you.
Next, we have Kathy Propp.
Yes, I'm Kathleen Propp, 1936 Hazel Street, and I also am concerned about the East Hall site. I strongly want that to remain a green space for the reasons that other speakers have already mentioned. And I was told right before the meeting that the vote tonight, should you vote, is to approve the lease and nothing else. Nothing about what you're going to do with the property. Well, that's what concerns me. I don't want a building on that property. I think that green space is just an oasis. It's just so valuable. Right now, the dandelions are ruling, but somebody can figure out a sustainable way to take care of them. If this is for outdoor recreation space for the school district, I'm 100% for it. But I really am concerned about the idea of a building. So I hope that you lay this over. If you do support the lease, the public wants to know what you want to do with it. And then whether we support it or not will depend on that decision. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
And our last speaker tonight is Shirley Brabender-Maddox.
Which one?
Pick one, anyone.
There we go. I'm a retired teacher, so I'm bringing my show and tell.
Name and address, please.
I had a very kind of recent wake-up call.
Excuse me, name and address, please.
Pardon? Oh, you want my name?
And address.
Oh, yes. Shirley Brabender-Maddox, 1313 Jackson Street. I had a recent, yesterday, wake-up call that the East Hall property, which is in the historic Jackson neighborhood, this is the historic Jackson neighborhood, and the green space that you see up here was Jackson Field, so that's no longer a green space. And the other green space is East Hall. And I've lived here for 36 years on Jackson. Years ago, when school didn't start real early, I used to walk to the river each day, and I walked past East Hall with the magnificent linden trees, oak trees. And some of them have disappeared, but the city forestry department has planted around East Hall. It's important for a healthy neighborhood, and I've been a neighborhood advocate before neighborhoods were even discussed in this city. And the quality of life is important. I'm not sure how thoughtful the plan is to plop something down on probably the most valuable green space in this central part of the city. Green space in many countries is more valuable than the buildings that they put on it. When I lived in London, our church was going to be torn down because the green space underneath was more valuable than the $1 million building. And that was 50 years ago that I learned that. Our neighborhood worked on developing a green space where the tennis courts were. When Stan Mack was the superintendent, we met with him. We met with the financial director, the facilities director. They came over, we looked at it, we measured it out. We told them of our plans to apply for grants, for trees, for plantings, for a.
Wind up in about
Am I? Oh my
15
gosh.
seconds, please.
Anyway, please contact neighbors when you make decisions.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
Shirley.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on with our agenda, we have the consent consent resolution agenda. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. The board will consider approval of 1, minutes of the April 25th, 2022 board reorganization meeting. 2, the minutes of the April 27th, 2022 regular board meeting. Number 3, minutes of the April 27th, 2022 executive session of the regular board meeting.
I move to waive the reading of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Kearns.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent resolution agenda as modified, since we removed item 12 to be individually considered.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Herzog.
Aye.
Kearns.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you very much. So moving on to resolution number 12. Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve the 50-year East Hall Park lease with UW Oshkosh at $1 per year, with 2 possible extensions of 20 years each at $1 per year, as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I think so.
Dr. Davis, did you want to comment on this resolution?
Yeah, just some perspective. Again, this is for long-term lease. There's no definitive plans on what, if anything, would go in this space. The context of the request for this lease is to be able to look at possibilities as we had just wrapped up our Facility Advisory Committee 2.0 to be able to look at opportunities for our extracurricular facilities for our students and for our staff members, and possibility of one of those facilities to be able to, be at this location. One of the things that I would say, first of all, is that this wouldn't be like in 1 year this is going to happen. So this will be a long-term process as we're moving through it. We certainly, as we heard tonight, it'll be important to be able to touch base with the neighborhood association in conjunction with the city to be able to talk about, if there is a definitive, project that's proposed for this space. What does that look like? And then what are some things maybe that can be complementary to a particular facility, whether it's indoor or outdoor. So really the sky's the limit on what those options would be. But I would want to commit the district to be able to work in collaboration with the neighborhood association and the city as we would look at anything as we'd move forward. We just felt like and appreciate the chancellor's willingness to be able to provide access to the lease at this point, and to be able to be long-term partners for this space as we're moving forward. So.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'll ask, was this something that, I mean, obviously, prime real estate, was this something where UW Oshkosh had come to us and asked if it was something? Is it something that they're looking to?
Yeah, more of a joint conversation as we were just working through our collaborative channels. That this was an opportunity for us to be able to look at maybe a joint opportunity. As you see in the lease, there's some access that we'll work through. If there is a facility there and it makes sense for UW Oshkosh and the school district, we'll have to work through those schedules. But that it was in the spirit of collaboration that the site even came up, and to be able to use that site for again, for the good of the city, for the good of our students and staff, we thought this was the right way to go.
I guess from my standpoint, I think it is very important that we work with the community groups as we do this, just like when we had that conversation 2 weeks ago regarding the Merrill site, that we don't go in with just one plan, that we have to look at all of them. And I feel like it might be too good of to pass up this opportunity to have this land, but then what we do with it, with Merrill, I think it's important that these two conversations kind of run parallel together.
Sure.
And what we do with one, we can't fill both sites with facilities and leave none of that green space, and we need to make sure that we are being very aware of that.
Yep.
And so I appreciate the people who spoke, emailed us, because I think it's important that that we do take that into account. So thank you.
Definitely.
Mrs. Wyman and then Mr. Wright.
As you know, I'm a huge proponent of neighborhoods. I think neighborhoods are critical to any successful, thriving community. I'm excited about this opportunity with the conversations that are going to happen. When I look at East Hall now, in winter, there's a snow fence around it, and I believe there's a fence around the whole thing. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we could work together and develop whatever it is we're going to develop, so it would have some use and have some green space and really be able for community members to use it. And except for some rugby people, and I drive by there almost every day, it is not being used to its full potential, and I can't imagine that the city would want to take it on as a full-fledged park, because it's a big area. So I think this is a nice opportunity for all of us to talk about the opportunities and how to maximize some usefulness of the area.
Mr. Wright.
I'm comfortable with this lease, and I think it's a good thing that we've started this conversation, and on how can we best utilize the space to benefit the community, to benefit the children in the community, to benefit the individuals that live around that space, and to benefit the city. Because I think we have a lot of great possibilities, and obviously the possibilities will only be as good as how well we work together to make sure that it's planned out properly, and to make sure that all stakeholders have input. And with all the things that we're doing in that area right now, obviously green space is going to be a priority for me when I'm voting on issues, to ensure that children and residents and community members have adequate green space in that area. And I think we'll have a lot of opportunity to do that. So I'm really excited about the potential and about the progress that we can make to move the whole community forward. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Anyone else?
You can go out first, I'll go.
Mrs. Carlin?
Thank you. At our last meeting, when we spoke about this, we had a mock-up of a track and a football field and some swings in the corner and everything. And that was just an illustration of the potential of what we could do.
So that would, just to clarify, that was at the Merrill site.
Oh, at the
Yeah,
Merrill
yeah,
site,
at the Bell
okay.
Phillips site where the Merrill building would
Okay,
be, yeah. So
got
different,
you.
that would be
So
a different.
that's different
space.
site,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm very confused.
They
Got
are
it.
close.
They
They
are
are
close.
2
Yes, they
blocks
are.
away
Yeah.
from each other.
But was that mock-up intended to be an indoor or outdoor?
So that's an outdoor, yeah. So that would
That's-
be
okay, so I
just
was right
an
on that.
example, yeah, an example of a track at Bell Phillips.
At
And-
Bell Phillips,
yeah.
okay, thank you. We haven't seen any mock-ups of what might go on this property, correct?
Correct, yeah, no, there's nothing that would be said. The Facility Advisory Committee will be coming for a workshop in July, just based on their recommendations. They don't name a specific site, for any of that, but, those would be some possibilities.
Okay.
But, yeah, there's nothing at this point said.
Okay.
Mrs. Salaji, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone who spoke and who emailed. They're very respectful and they're easy to understand arguments. Like, isn't easy to agree with is what I mean by easy to understand. I think all the points that are being made are very fair. That the people in this neighborhood, I pulled up the map while some people were speaking, and there is definitely a lack of green space. It's hard to not acknowledge that. For me, when we first heard about this proposal, this partnership with UWO, to use the East Hall Park for one of our activities facilities, whether it's like a athletic facility or fine arts facility, the reason this was so attractive to me is because of our equity work. And in the past, when we've had people approach us about places where we could put these facilities, they have, to my knowledge, the 3 years I've been on the school board, always been on the west side of 41, on the furthest south side of town, or the furthest north side of town, where buses don't have routes, where students who live in these places that admittedly lack green space would have a very difficult time getting to. So what was very exciting to me about the East Hall opportunity is making sure that the students in those neighborhoods and the neighborhoods nearby there will be able to have access to those facilities that we make. So I just wanted to express that other kind of outlook on why, for a school facilities, East Hall Park is a really good opportunity. And I also want to echo what was mentioned in the comments and what Ms. Carlin was kind of talking about, that Merrill Middle School is just a couple blocks away. And I said this 2 weeks ago when we had the discussion about the plans there, that to me, green space in that neighborhood is a priority over any other thing, that I would be a very hard sell for giving up any of that land. Even if we decided that we didn't need a track there, we didn't need the mock-up, right, that was presented, I would still just want green space, because I absolutely agree with what has been said tonight. That the students at our schools, the neighborhood families and individuals in that part of town, they deserve green space, and I don't want to take that from them, but I also want to give equity for our activities facilities as we continue to plan that. So, I don't know, I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that so people in the public know where I stand on all of this.
Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Salaji. Did you want to come back, Mrs. Carlin?
One comment is that I think that there's a lot of misinformation floating around out there based on some of the emails we received. We have not stated our intention at all for this property. It's a great opportunity, and we're not making any decisions now, but certainly as we move forward, working with neighborhoods and the city is going to be critical, and I think we all can agree on that. So thank you again to everyone who sent us emails and brought this to our attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I want to also thank those who took time to send emails today. I was at Care Days most of the morning, and so I didn't get a chance to respond to many of those, and then I was involved in some other volunteer activities in the community in the afternoon. But I have at least scanned those, and we'll go back and read those. But at this point, we have not made any decisions about this particular space. I view this as an opportunity to address some of the issues that our athletic coaches and so on have expressed concern about, in that we have baseball teams, I'm told, that are practicing on black-topped parking lots. If we could move them to a facility such as this, that would be a great improvement for them. And I agree that we should collaborate with the city as well as the county. We should not do this in isolation, nor should we do it in isolation from the Facilities Advisory Council. But since we will not be receiving that report in a workshop until I think it's July 13th, is that the correct date? It's premature at this point to conclude that any decisions have been made. But I totally agree with this green space push, or I shouldn't say push, I didn't mean to say that, this interest in green space. I live approximately 2 blocks from Emmeline Cook School. I see Cougar Field, which is the baseball, softball field being used when school is not in session. I see people coming in with volleyball nets, soccer nets, and playing those games. I see children and families, grandparents, parents, all the time in the playground area. So whatever district facilities we have, they're typically open to the community, just like I see people at the North Track off school hours walking the track singly or with other people. So I don't see this as being something that we're going to hold to the school district and not share. Whatever would be done there, I would see as sharing, just as we do with every other facility. But I do applaud the notion of green space, particularly in a neighborhood such as the Merrill neighborhood, which does not have what you'd call an abundance of green space. Our Webster Stanley School is directly across the street from Menominee Drive and has access to that Menominee Park and through Hazel Street and so on. So I think it's really important that we work with the neighborhood associations and with the neighbors in that region. But I see this as a great opportunity for us to gain additional access for spaces for our students and our families to play and to recreate. And I understand that the university didn't feel it was being fully utilized, and so they didn't have a great need for it. And so like Mrs. Wyman, I drive past that usually multiple times a day. And even when the university is in session, I see very few people out there, maybe a half dozen or so playing football or flag football, but that's about it. So I think if we can work together to enhance this green space for Val Phillips Middle School and for the neighborhood, we would all benefit. All right, any other comments on agenda item number 12?
May I ask a question?
No, we don't allow questions at this point. Sorry.
Motion to approve the East Hall Park lease with UW Oshkosh.
I thought we already had a motion on that, did we not?
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you just,
Yeah, we're in
We were in the
discussion.
discussion following
Okay,
the-
call.
Right,
I'll call.
Right.
Call for vote.
Call
Call
the
the vote.
question. Okay, please
Yep.
call the roll.
Kearns.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. So, assuming that the Board of Regents will approve this at their June meeting, we would proceed with developing plans for that once the Facilities Advisory Committee has reported back to us. At this time, we move on to requests for future agenda items. Is there anyone who has a future agenda item they would like to propose? Mrs. Szilagyi?
I have a couple that could either come through committees or through administrative reports, but I would just like an update on the secure entry at the remaining schools. I think we had 4 elementary schools left that we put a bid out for, and only 1 bid came back. Therefore, we didn't take it because our policy states we have to have more than 1 bid. So if we could just get an update, like I said, either, I don't know if the Facilities and Finance
would
Committee
probably
wants to
be-
put that
yeah,
on their
that's what I was
agenda. And then we would, I'm not on that committee, but as a board member, I would see your notes and be able to get my own information about that. And I also, this is a question I was asked today that I thought was very relevant in regards to that. If there is not a possibility to complete those this summer, which I believe was the initial plan, if we could think of temporary solutions for those remaining schools. I understand that with the way construction prices are and everything right now, that might not get done this summer, but if we could reach out to those schools and ask if they have ideas for temporary solutions, or maybe there are some already in the works, I'd like to hear about that too. And then maybe for the education committee, an update on 4K sites. I know in our long-range facilities plan, there's kind of this notion that 4K sites would move away from their neighborhood schools and have a central location. I've always wanted to have a discussion around that, but I thought it was far enough out that I never brought it up. But I just sorry, now I lost my train of thought about how to finish this sentence. But if we could just get an update on what that long-range plan looks like. I don't know if there even is one in design, I guess is what I'm getting at. But, and I am on the education committee, so I would be able to be a part of those discussions about what that long-range plan for our 4K sites looks like.
Is that specific to the sites or to the programming?
So,
Sounds like
yeah.
sites. So I'm just,
so my children have always had the, I think, wonderful opportunity of going to their neighborhood school for their 4K site.
Sure.
I would like to know if our long-range plan is to pull away from that. I get if my hunch is that it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to just wait till we had like Webster plans, because I know Webster currently has one, and see if that was part of the plan in the new building. But I think this might be coming up sooner than basically my point is I'd kept kind of putting off bringing it up, but I think it's happening sooner than I imagined, so.
So I'm wondering, not to pull it off of your committee, but I'm wondering if that's a little more facilities, like.
Okay, yeah, that could
if
also
if
be
it's about the
facilities.
site specifically, I mean, we could probably work it into.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that
either
makes
one,
sense.
But I'm thinking, because that would be in aligned with our long-range facilities plan and some of the design for like the new elementary school and that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense,
that's
that
all
it
right.
would be facilities. I think I just wanted to be a part of that conversation, so I was gonna shoot it to education.
Yeah, like I said, it's.
I'll let
It'd be up-
Dr. Herzog
yes,
and
it-
Mr.
it-
Carnes
it would
battle
be-
over who gets it on their committee.
We could probably put it in either one, but I just want to be specific on the purpose, so it sounds like the physical sites.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would
yeah,
just like to
okay.
know if we are moving away from having them located in our neighborhood schools.
Okay.
And have a conversation around that
Okay.
whenever it's appropriate to have that conversation.
Sure.
And wherever it's appropriate to have that conversation.
Yep.
And maybe it's appropriate to do both. We've had other topics that have been addressed by two different committees. And so I could see, for example, if you're wanting to look at curriculum and collaboration among staff and those types of issues, that could fall under education, but the actual number of sites and where they're located.
As facilities, yeah.
But they're related. They're not totally different.
Yes.
So I could
'Cause-
see both taking a look at that.
You know, we're not really noticed to discuss it, so maybe I shouldn't explain my rationale for a committee, but.
Well, anyway, we have those on the list, so we'll.
All right,
we'll follow
thank
up.
you.
Did you have anything else?
No, those were my two requests.
Okay, I think Mr. Carnes had something in mind. No?
Yeah, I do. It kind of floats between the two of those announcement or request for future agenda items. I just want to say, Dr. Davis, you brought this up at the beginning, and I think it's important. It's kind of maybe not a request for a future agenda item, but a request for us to use the power that we have through WASB, through the superintendent's groups, to do what we can to make common sense changes to avoid those school shootings that we are seeing. I was a senior at Oshkosh West High School, and you described having the next day having a hit list show up as well. And what we went through for even in Oshkosh when it was, I have a fourth grader. And there's only so much we can do when it comes to training our students, to securing our buildings, when people come as armed as they can. And so it's kind of shaking as I say it, because I'm sick of moments of silence, and I think that
we may have some ability to ask our legislatures and ask our people, and to actually, instead of sitting around, with friends and stuff saying, what can we do? Like, we may have some ability, even if it's little, it's more than most, to try to push for changes that can avoid those situations from happening. So I appreciate you bringing it up, and it's just something on my mind the last 24 hours as well, that, if there's anything that we can do, I think we can't wait, because, it could be anywhere. It could have been in my son's 4th grade class, it could have been. So thank you for bringing that up before, and what we can do going forward. And so.
Okay, we'll make sure that gets on as a future agenda item, and or assigned to an appropriate committee, which might be facilities and finance. It might be also legislative. But we'll make sure we get those addressed. Are there any other requests for future agenda items at this time? Mrs. Carlin?
I would like an update on the Winneconne bus stop situation. We've received a couple emails about the location of that bus stop, and I just want to know what's going on. And I'd also like to request some follow-up conversation or to our equity workshop, and follow up on our next steps, I guess is the way to put it.
Thank you. I would concur with that. I'd like to see an emphasis on curriculum in terms of the students taking advanced courses, students taking AP courses, and so on. Anyone else?
Just as the pigtail off of Stephanie's comment on the equity work, included with that, I would like some discussion based around how often we're getting data on those measures, throughout the school year, because I think it's important for us to, like we're going to measure literacy scores and math scores, I think it's also important that we keep track of where we're at with equity work on a pretty regular basis, so we can tie all that in.
Absolutely. Thank you. And equity is one of our strategic goals, so it makes sense to have regular updates on that so that we keep that in the forefront. Any other suggestions? You've got we've added lots of things today. That's great. Any other ideas? All right, then, any announcements? I would just like to commend 3 staff members. I know more than that were involved, but I'd like to commend Gillian Pakula, one of our Cole Award winners this year, along with Chris Steinhilber and Patty Kimball, who were so involved in planning Care Days, an equity experience for our adaptive PE kids across the district. Those 3 have done a great job. This is the 6th annual Care Days. That's why 3 of us are wearing these T-shirts. But if you could have been in that auditorium when that got kicked off, it was electric. And the joy on the faces of those children who participate in adaptive PE, as well as their buddies, was just, it brought tears to my eyes. It was so moving, the kindness and the caring that were exhibited among those students. And so I want to extend kudos to those 3 teachers in particular, the entire West staff. Custodial staff had to make some adjustments because it was a liquid sunshine day today. The regular FIED classes had to be rescheduled, and I just can't say enough for this experience for our students. We talk about all means all, and today was a good example of that at Oshkosh West High School. Any other announcements?
We've been really busy, so I don't want to forget this. Diversity Days was really cool at Oshkosh West. I know a number of us got to play the drums, and they did a really good job putting that together. So I don't want to forget. I don't want to not thank the people that put all that together as well, so.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else?
As long as we're thanking, I had the opportunity to be part of the interview process at Oshkosh North Communities for their senior graduation projects, and how wonderful to see a program where they are learning life skills that they will be able to apply when they graduate to so many aspects of their life. It was a very nice opportunity.
Very good. And speaking of graduations, West High School seniors will be graduating this Friday night, and North High School students will be graduating next week, Wednesday, along with Project Search graduates are also winding up their high school careers on June 1st. So lots of things to celebrate and lots of staff members to thank for their ongoing support of these students, and to thank the parents who are our partners in the education of their children, whom they entrust us with every day. So congratulations to everyone who is graduating or has supported someone who's going to be successfully graduating this week, along with those who have also already graduated from the Riverside program. So again, lots of positive things going on in our district. Any other announcements? Any final thoughts? All right, then moving on. Next agenda item deals with adjourning to executive session. This would be for the purpose of considering the disciplinary data of specific persons under Wisconsin Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren F. A, review expulsion recommendation from an expulsion hearing officer for a high school student who engaged in conduct while at school or while under the supervision of a school authority which endangered the property, health, or safety of others, and engaged in conduct constituting repeated refusal or neglect to obey the rules under Wisconsin Statute 120.13, paren 1, paren C, paren E.
So moved.
Second.
It
was the
was
second?
Carnes
Carlin.
and-
Tie.
I've never finished the word
Carlin.
second.
Okay, would you please call the roll?
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned to executive session.
Thank you very much.
I think it was Alice that always joked about like.